Good morning. This is part two of the sales funnel AI automation. Today we're going to be going over how I increase lead conversion rates, basically in two ways. One is implementing an AI lead enrichment with automated and hyper-personalized follow-ups. I also created an automated workflow to filter unconverted leads from your CRM to your newsletter subscription. If you don't have a newsletter by now, I definitely recommend it. Even if you send them out once a month or even once a quarter, it's important to keep providing value to your leads so that you maintain that brand presence for your potential clients. Now today we're building off of our previous video, which was a sales funnel automation that took us from lead intake to CRM management, this portion right here, in between filtering and qualifying your clients and creating customized response to your leads. But today we're going to be focusing on these two systems right here, which is the automatic follow-up and then the automated workflow for the newsletter from CRM. Now this would be a real-life use case for this workflow. As you can see here, we're feeding some data into OpenAI's large language model to enrich the lead, and then we're sending out the email to your lead from there. I'm going to first go over this workflow, and then I'll also show a leaner workflow that will probably cut this portion out. If you don't want to get into the complexity of actually using AI or large language models and you want to send out a static follow-up. And the final step is we're going to go over the CRM to newsletter workflow. If you remember from my previous video, we sent out customized messages and emails to our leads. Essentially, what we want to do is get those emails and those replies that the lead would have given to us and capture it all into a label or folder. So the way we do that is we go to all settings, filters, and blocked addresses. And we want to create a new filter down here. From here, you want the subject to have a key phrase. So let's say demo. And that's it. Just create the filter. Now we want to choose apply the label. And you also want to create a similar folder on the left-hand side and map it to that folder. Now the reason we're doing it this way is I first started off creating an AI inbox manager agent, and I also just tried doing it straight from an automation perspective and looking at the entirety of your inbox and filtering only the ones that you wanted. I found doing it this way saves the most in operational costs and is not too complicated to set up. Now this was the workflow from our previous video. If you remember in the Gmail section, we can change the subject. And here, this is where you want to put the key phrase that we put in the Gmail. So for now, we can keep it as demo. But in a real life scenario, let's say you were doing a business tax service. You would say something like business tax service. And then you would also use the filter as business tax service for your Gmail. Now, going back here, we're going to use two of the Get Emails Gmail module. So the first one, you can set up in the same way. We're filtering it on the demo folder, simple filter type, all emails, and then your sender email is your email. So what this is looking for is all emails that we've sent out in that folder. So typically, you would want to wait maybe like a week or so. So it would look something like this. So what this is saying is find all emails in the demo folder that we had sent out between 6 and 5 days ago. The next module is we are checking if the lead had responded to us. And so we're still filtering on the demo folder, simple, all emails, but we're using this function right here. So if empty is just saying if this part does not exist, then grab here. So we're just capturing all cases where the lead email address could be. And then the recipient email address would be your email address. And the from date is saying we want the lead to have responded after we sent our initial email. The last step is if you go all the way to the bottom, you want to toggle yes here, which just says if this module returns nothing, then continue the flow. Now, in between these two get modules, we're putting a filter just to check if the recipient exists. So we're using the same formula that we had in the second get module. Actually, for Gmail, you don't even need this right here. So you could just do get me the recipient email address, which would be recipient email address. The next step is this downloading function. This was also in the previous sales funnel automation. The reason for this is if you want to send additional PDF attachments, that will be part of your follow-up email. So maybe you want to send them an additional tax plan or show them a case study of how you saved a similar client an X amount of money. If you don't want to do this, you can just delete it. And because we went over this in the previous video, I will just delete this. Now the next filter is we want to check if there's a response. So if you go here, check if response, sender name, we want this to be does not exist. So if there's no sender name, we want them to continue through the workflow. So our Google Sheets module is going to be our CRM. You can connect this to whatever CRM you use, monday.com, Airtable, whatever it is. The idea behind it is the same, which is we're searching the rows. Now this is our dummy CRM. From our previous video, these are being populated automatically. So we know that the lead that we sent out an email to exists somewhere in this CRM. Now the reason we're doing this is we want information in column F. What is your biggest issue regarding taxes? So we're going to get this information here, and then we're going to feed it to OpenAI's LLM and have it draft an email from there. So this is the lead enrichment part. So how are we going to get that information from our CRM? We do Google Sheets, search rows. It might be different if you use a different CRM, but you can follow the same format here. We have our spreadsheet, we have our column ranges, and we're filtering by the email. So that's going to be our key. So this is the same function that we used to check for emails. Again, we don't even need this part. We can keep it very simple right here. Now, when we run this workflow, this module right here is going to be capturing all the data on that specific lead by their email address. Now we feed it to an OpenAI large language model. You can play around with this, but this is what we've had the most success with. You want to create a completion prompt. This is the module that you're using. And when you go into here, you can use any model you like. Doesn't matter too much. Now we chose system, and this is the prompt that we're feeding to our large language model. So you work for an accounting firm and are responsible for creating follow-up emails. The following text is the biggest issue a client has regarding their taxes, and this is the responses that we would get from our CRM that we're mapping it dynamically here. Be sure to mention how your firm can solve this issue above and create the email in the following structure. Now this function is basically getting the name, which has the first and last name. We're splitting it so that the first and last name are separate variables, and then we're extracting only the first variable, which would be the first name. Now we're including the body of the email and then signing it. And that's pretty much it for this OpenAI. The final step is we're creating a draft. The reason we're doing draft instead of sending an email directly is I don't personally think that we're at the level where we can have the AI just spit out the content and send it off at will. I do think there is a need for a human in the loop. So this is especially valuable if you have a sales team and for an SDR to send out very personalized emails at scale. All they need to do is go into the drafts, spend 5 minutes editing the email that the AI spit out, and then sending it off. So you can see here, the email address is the recipient's email address that we got from Module 1. And the reason we can do this, even if there are multiple outputs in Module 1, is that we have all these filters to capture and get only the leads that we want. Now we're just mapping dynamically the response that we got from OpenAI. And this code right here basically includes the previous email or the initial email that we had sent out. For attachments, this is the Google Drive aggregating steps that we just removed. So we can get rid of this. So let's run this module. And let's break it down. So these are some dumb emails that I put in. As you can see here, there are 2 bundle outputs, which means that there are 2 scenarios where I had sent out emails to a lead within that date range, the 5 and 6 days. Now for the second module, we're checking if the lead had responded to us. So in operation 2, I made it so that I did respond, so you can see that there is an output. But for operation 1, There is no output, just an input. That lead is the one that we want to send a follow-up to. Now here we're checking if there was a response. Like I said, only one goes through. Now for our Google Sheets, we are gathering information from our CRM on that particular lead. Now that we're filtering it to our OpenAI module. We're feeding it to the large language model. And this is the result. Now you can continue to edit this prompt. This guy is talking for a while, so we can always tell the prompt, keep it under an X amount of words, etc. But as you can see, our lead's issue was that the previous CPA was mean and they weren't professional. So that's the pain point of the lead that we want to address in our personalized email. The final step is the draft. If you go to content, it's basically the same thing that was in the previous module, except now it includes this HTML code, which would just include the previous conversation from our initial email. Like I said, this is very valuable for your SDR if you have one. With that said, most accounting firms and law firms don't really have a dedicated sales team, and they run pretty lean. So in cases where you don't want to spend 2 or 3 minutes or however many minutes going through and double checking the AI's work, we can delete this entire portion right here. Let me connect it. Delete this portion here. I accidentally deleted too much because we want to keep our CRM information here so we can extract the names in case the email doesn't have their name, but the CRM will have it. Now, instead of draft an email module, we're doing send an email, but we're going to be mapping it pretty much the same way. This initial flow up to this point is exactly the same. So when we go into here, the 2 email addresses from the lead, following up could be the subject. One thing to know is you don't want to include the key word, so you don't want to put demo in here, otherwise you'll be in a continual loop. HTML is fine, and over here you can see this is the same way we split up the names for our previous Gmail module. And you can say something like this, or however you want to format it. And then the bottom code here is just including the initial email that we sent out 5 or 6 days ago. If you want this code, you can just copy it or pause it here and copy it. So let's test this out. So we have to remember, since we're not doing the attachments anymore, we want to get rid of this. That should be good. So this is the follow-up email that we had sent out 0 minutes ago. And as you can see, it's pretty good in the sense that it gets the job done, and you don't really have to think about the AI portion of it as well. And this portion right here is the initial email that we had sent out. The last thing is this runtime down here. You want it to run once a day. Doesn't really matter when. And you also want to make sure that the gap between these 2 from and before dates is 1 day. Otherwise, you're going to have duplicates. The final step is our CRM to newsletter workflow. It's pretty short and shouldn't take too long to set up. First step is downloading all the information from our CRM. So we can use get range values if you're using Google Sheets. I think Monday it's called list items or something like that. You can follow this mapping. We're just extracting all the information. And then we're setting it to this set variable module. I can't remember exactly why I did this. Oh, I think there was an issue with the formatting of the date. So yeah, I grabbed this date here. And when you format it, you can do month, date, year. But the important thing is we want to have this filter here. So this filter is going to tell us, give me all the leads that were unconverted. Doesn't necessarily have to be in the past month. So that's what we're looking for. So if you go here, in our CRM, we had a status of the current status of the lead. And so that's the number, or that's the data that we're extracting. So here's waiting on customer response. So text operator is not equal to. So if it's not equal to converted, push it through this workflow. So the final step is sending it off to your newsletter software. We're using SendGrid, but it's pretty much the same across the board if you're using MailChimp or something. We're finding our list, we're filtering by the email, or mapping by the email, and we want the first and last name. So this is the same function that we did earlier in the video. You can also map other items that you want if you have this in your CRM, like your address, all that good stuff. Now the final thing is adding another filter in between these 2 modules. So this is the part where we're getting leads since last month, right? We don't want all unconverted leads. We just want the ones since the last run, which could be however often you want to do it. I recommend monthly just so your team has some time to update the CRM. So we're doing by the lead date, which we got from this module here. So it has to be earlier than right now, which is when the operation ran. And we want it later than 31 days ago. Make sure that you're using the date time operators, earlier than equal to, later than, that's fine. And when you run this, you see that 1 lead came in, and this is the output job. You can see that initially there were 3 leads that were unconverted, or sorry, 3 leads that came in, only 2 were unconverted. Of that 2, only 1 came since last month. So that's what's getting updated into your newsletter subscription. So in terms of scheduling, you want to run this once a month or however long that interval is. So we'll do days of the month, we'll do 1. And so some months have 30 days, but we're capturing by 31 days. Pretty much every newsletter software will have the capability to remove duplicates. So even if there is, a lead that comes through that slim time frame, the newsletter should capture it so that there are no duplicates. So as you can imagine, this is very simple, but you can also make it as complex and powerful as you want. So let's add our router right here. So from here, we can have different audiences. Maybe you want to send different emails to someone who makes 10K a month versus someone who makes 100K a month. So this flexibility allows us to be very specific with how we target our audiences. So if you continue to provide value for them, maybe a couple months down the line, when they do need your service, your firm will be top of mind for them. So that's all I had for this video. Hopefully it was helpful. The combination of having this newsletter workflow, but also the automatic follow-ups is very, very powerful. And you should definitely see an increase in your lead conversion rates once you implement these 2 things. So let me know if you have any questions on the actual builds itself. I'll be happy to share or export the blueprints for these demos, and then you can actually just drag and drop it into your Make account.